Alright guys, today it is a little before 1 a.m. on January 27, 2019. I'm going to make a video about 3 related dreams that I had. Okay, so this one was from the 21st, 6 days ago. I saw giant, so it was like 25 or 50 pound sacks of wheat as a commodity. And the price was very high because there was very little. Storage drove the price up. Like on the exchange. Okay, so it was like either the price had went up, it was either 100 times or 1,000 times for this sack of wheat. So then I wrote this. A marketplace, like a stock exchange, is a marketplace. And it finds the highest bidder. A market, that's all the stock exchange is. They call them the markets. They are designed to bring buyers and sellers together of commodities. And a commodity is anything that's bought, sold, traded, exchanged for some medium that is considered to be valuable. So, most people on this planet do not grow food. And every single day, the global government that we are all under the influence of, which is the fourth beast of Revelation, communism, the UN, Barack Obama, all of these are words for the beast, the Antichrist government, the Fourth Reich, the final kingdom. This entity is what we live under. And what they're doing is they want to control the whole world on behalf of Satan so that he can get the whole world to worship him and take his mark. And the ultimate control over people is that they cannot eat. So they want people off the land, not to own land, not to have any property, into small spaces, small cities that there is not enough land for people to support themselves. They want you to live stacked up into the air in towers so that you live in the middle of the air with no ground, so you can't plant anything, so you can't feed yourself, so they can cause you to be dependent, like rats in a cage. If you feed something, you control it. If you're the only way they can get food, you control them. So that's why the number one tenet of communism is to abolish private property. You control the belly, you control the man. So in every nation where they go, they take the land and they take away a person's ability to be self-sufficient. So when they are able to drive up the price of food, and in my dream, it was represented by a sack of wheat, a huge sack of wheat, huge to me. It was either 25 or 50 pounds. Sack, like a burlap sack. And so that's what this global government is doing. They want people out of cities. They want people into places where they can't be self-sufficient, where they have to depend on markets, supermarkets. And a market is a place where traders of goods bring together what are called commodities, which are things that are traded from across the world, from one place to connect goods that are to be sold to people who need to buy those or want to buy those. And the purpose of that market is to set a price. The seller of something wants to get the highest price, and that's what the market is designed to do, to find the highest bidder and to make sure the goods go not where they're needed, but to whoever can pay the most for them, whoever can create the most advantage for the seller. So things will always be guaranteed to be unfair, ill-distributed. There always will be poor people, hungry people, because of these markets, because of these traders, because of the love of money. So this dream where a sack of wheat was either 100 times or 1,000 times the price. And I wrote because of storage, but I think I meant to write shortage. I'm pretty sure, because when I write this, obviously I was dreaming, so obviously I just woke up and I'm writing it. Sometimes it's really sloppy where I can barely read it or can't read it. And I'm like riding off into a trail, or I'm writing in the dark. Still half asleep. So I want to read a couple of scriptures to you. I'm in the book of Revelations. Not sure exactly where what I'm looking for is, but I think it is chapter 6. It is not chapter 6. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it is Revelation chapter 6. Because I wasn't up high enough. Revelation chapter 6. I'll start with verse 5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." So, there are the six seals in the book of Revelation. There's there's 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and then there's 7 vials. The 7 vials contain the wrath of God. They come last. They come after the 7th trumpet. And at the 7th trumpet comes the resurrection and the coming of Jesus Christ. And then everything that's left in the earth is going to be destroyed. Not Christians being left behind or lukewarm Christians or any such nonsense. Those are myths, and they're not in the Bible at all. What happens is the Lord Jesus returns, and he says his reward is with him to give unto every man as their works shall be. Yes, I said works. Do you save yourself? Did we save ourselves? God sent his son. He didn't send his son because we were righteous. He sent his son because we needed a savior, because we were in our sins and on our way to hell. And he sent his son to give us a gospel, to give us a means by which we could be cleansed from our sins. We have to receive Jesus Christ. We have to receive him unto obedience to the gospel. That's faith. Faith is hearing and doing. So, anyway, so my belief is that the 6 seals and the 6 trumpets are they coincide with each other. Not 6, 7 seals. The 7 seals and the 7 trumpets coincide with one another. And that the 7 vials are separate, obviously, because they're the wrath of God. But the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets are what happens before. And they represent specific events. So at the 3rd seal, there is a black horse. And the one that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And he's measuring a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. Now, as you know, in the ancient world, when they used coin for money, gold and silver coin for money, what they had was pieces of gold and silver. And they went by the weight. So they would set a price for something, and then you would weigh out the amount of gold or silver that you set for the price. So the Lord talks about a just balance. So a balance would be something like a cash register for us. So you put the balance and you have your weights and say, this weight says on it 1 penny. Then I have another weight that equals 2 pennies. So obviously, if I'm a crook, I may have a weight that says this weighs as much as a penny, or, a talent of silver, or whatever your medium is. And I say that this weighs 1 talent, but really it weighs 2 talents. So when I weigh out your gold, I'm the merchant, so I have the cash register. So when I weigh out your gold, and it's just pieces, and you put them on my scale, I charge you twice as much because my weights are mislabeled. And a crook would do that on purpose so that a person is paying more than they should to you. So that's why the Lord talks about he despises an unjust balance. He despises it. God is justice. He is fairness. He is equity. He is righteous. He is what is righteous. There's no definition of righteousness outside of him. He is justice. So when he talks about the man or the rider on the black horse, that's why they say that this rider represents famine, because the measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny represent, in my dream, shortage, where the wheat costs so much. Suddenly, because of shortage, the price of the wheat went so far up. So the consequences of that are people are going to go hungry. So somehow in the world, they had created some sort of shortage of wheat. I don't know if it was done by weather, by famine, but whatever it was done, it was manipulated. It was done on purpose. So they're going to create shortages of wheat, of money. I mean, not of wheat, of food, not money, but food. All right. All right. And that part where it says, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And if you read that, like, so what is going on that the wheat and the barley have been made scarce and expensive in the market? But there's a control where there's some ability to control the oil and the wine. That, to me, lets you know that this is manipulated. Because if there's, scarcity of food, of oil, wine, and wheat, why isn't it everywhere? So that's why they say the third beast represents famine. Not the third beast. The third seal and the rider on the black horse. All right. And all that had ships in the sea. Okay, if I didn't say this, we're in the tribulation. Okay, Revelation 18. Okay. Okay, so in Revelation 18, it's telling about the fall of Babylon. And the main representation of Babylon is, well, the root of it is Jerusalem, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. We belong, the Lord showed me, that America belongs to Israel. We're theirs. Probably even their creation. So therefore, America, we're, the daughter. We're big. We're the biggest harlot. And so we are Babylon. Also, the Catholic Church represents this whore. And specifically in the United States, New York. So that's where Revelation chapter 18 is talking about the fall of Babylon. All right. So it says, verse 7, Revelation chapter 18, verse 7, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. It's like you cannot convince people that America is going to fall. You cannot convince them that God will judge them. Even people who say they're Christians, they cannot acknowledge that this is a sinful nation, a nation that has no regard for God, has long ago disregarded God, and that because of that, He's passed judgment on America, a judgment that will not be turned away. It's already set. It is already set. They have gone past the point of no return. And He will only save the righteous within it. And we have to come out of the system, come out of the mechanisms of this system. So it says this, how much she says, I sit as a queen, I am no widow, I shall see no sorrow. Like, you just can't get people to believe. They'll say, oh, pray for America. Look what we just did. Look what America is doing. The leader of the world in unrighteousness, the mother of harlots, the exporter of wickedness, the center of porn and everything disgusting. New York, a state that passes a law that you can kill a baby all up until the day it's born, that it has no rights unless it's outside of its mother's body. So 5 minutes before, it's not a human being. 5 minutes after, it's a human being. But then you can say, I said a queen? God's supposed to be pleased with that? Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. America's is the whore of Babylon, and America's full of whores and whoremongers, literal whores. The American woman is formed as a whore. All of her practices that are highly esteemed among men are an abomination before God. A woman in a bikini. A woman who doesn't respect or obey her husband. A woman who goes against his authority. A woman who leaves her children when she doesn't have to be raised by strangers so she can go and feel important at a job. A woman who goes to a job to get away from her children, who values status and money over family and nurturing her children and providing comfort in her home and guiding her home pleasing and submitting to the rule of her husband. These women who go out, half clad, these women who just, decide this is a bad time for their career to have a baby. So they want to march in the street for the right to kill it. They want to dye their hair purple and paint their faces to allure men. They want to sleep around and be called a lady. They don't want you to say the word whore, but that's what the Bible calls it. They're whores. A whore is someone who sleeps with anyone other than her husband, with whom she's entered into a covenant, a lifelong covenant, till death do us part. Any other woman is a whore. The Bible calls you a whore. God calls it whoredom. And the men who share their bodies outside of covenant, they're whoremongers. Whoremongers. So this place, Babylon, produces whores. And these whores are selfish, and they're the opposite of mothers. They kill their children. They sacrifice their children. They devour their children. When they get hungry, they'll boil their children and serve their flesh and eat them to sustain themselves, whatever form that may take. Whether she loves men, she loves money, she loves her sleep, whatever. She ignores her children. So anyway, she sits a queen. She thinks she's a queen. Nothing bad's ever going to happen to me. The good times will roll. Nothing bad's ever going to happen to me. They think that the dollar's never going to fall. I have equity in my house. I have a 401k. I'm a boss. I take selfies. I got 150 likes on my last selfie on Facebook. Whatever. So the Bible says in verse 8, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, hunger. She shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning when America falls, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. This is the verse I wanted to get to. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Where are all these stock exchanges located? Stock exchanges located in New York, in America, in New York. And it says, the merchants of the earth. Remember, merchants bring goods to markets. so that they can determine the highest bidder and set prices. So the stock exchange is a market where merchants, where they offer up their stocks, their products of their company, shares, everything. Everything is turned into a commodity. Everything is given a price. God made these things. He freely gave them. But man takes them and puts a price on them. You know what man even put a price on? You know what man even put a price on? The life of the Son of God. And a paltry price he set at that, 30 pieces of silver. Man is so scummy. He loves money. Money's his God. That he puts a price on everything. And they say every man has his price. We take everything to the market. We find the highest bidder. We won't work unless there's a price on it. There will be garbage piled up in the streets once they herd all these Americans into all these cities, every place in the world. There'll be garbage piled up in your city. Because these people, after they herd you into all these cities, they don't care how you live. They're going to advertise it as a utopia, and it's going to be a living hell. But men, they're going to dry up all the money. And so men are so motivated by money that they're going to be there and have garbage piled up around them, but they won't work because there's no money for it. But what's of value is not money, it's your labor. Be willing to get up and do what's right instead of what pays. This is how the devil controls people. This is why the love of money is the root of all evil. Because whoever controls the flow of money controls what people will do, because money's their God. But if I'm not willing to be bought, then the devil would have no servants. This is why I'm the servant of the living God. Because I'm sold to do righteousness, not sold to sin, not sold to the will of Satan, not sold under $1. I was a nurse until it became so abundantly clear they don't want to pay me to care for people. They don't want to pay me to comfort the sick. They want to pay me to give flu shots. They want to pay me to collect your child's DNA. They want to pay me to pump you full of drugs. They want to pay me to rush around. Type in a computer, spend more time in the computer than I do caring for my patients. They want to pay me to answer your call light instead of to care for you with compassion. They want me to follow rules and protocols instead of common sense. They want me to do what I'm told and not what's right. I don't care how much they offer me. I'm not going to do it. I will never put an RFID chip in a human being. And that's what it's coming to. Anyway, verse 12, verse 11. The merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Merchandise is what people bring to markets. The markets are in Babylon. Prices are set in Babylon. So the merchandise of gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple and silk and scarlet, and all fine wood, and all manner of ivory, and all manner of vessels, and most precious woods, and brass, and iron, and marble, and cinnamons, and odors, and ointments, and everything you can buy, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, beasts, sheep, and horses, and chariots. Ford and GM and Chrysler, they're all traded on the market. And slaves, we call them workers sometimes, and souls of men. And the fruit that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. Your markets will fall. It says, and the merchants of these things, which were made rich by her. Why? Because markets bring things together to be sold to the highest buyer. You won't sell your wheat to your neighbor who needs it, who's hungry. You're going to skip them. And you're going to sell it to the person who's willing to offer you the most money. And they don't want anybody growing food. They don't want everybody growing food. They want to control how much food there is because shortage controls the price. It says, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company of ships and sailors. I don't care how advanced the world becomes. You cannot get spices from India unless you have a ship. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heavens, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and of trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. Because men can't work, won't work. for anything except money. When the money's dried up, they won't do it. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. What controls the markets? Money, credit, bankers. And money is not real. Money is not real. It was created to make sure they would always have slaves. That's what God told me. It's just a deception. It's not real at all. It's nothing. They create it out of nothing. And they move it around. And you log into your bank account, and it looks like you have some of it. It's just a screen. It's just an illusion. And just as fast as they made it, it's going to poof away. It's sorcery. How else is it not sorcery? If a man won't get up and flick on a light switch without it. But if you offer him it, he'll get up and flick on a light switch. It's nothing but sorcery. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth, the root of all evil. Why they kill the prophets? Because God is concerned about justice and equity and fairness and just balances. He's concerned about those who oppress for money and for slaves. And he tells his saints to do what's right. So they got to go. Because they won't participate in these things. And his prophets and his saints will speak against it. So their blood is always spilled. And they're always hated. Because they won't be driven to have advantage by the opportunity to have advantage over other people. They won't oppress. Okay. All right. This is the other dream that I had that's related to this. Okay. I'll say real quick on 1/21/19, there was a dream. We were in the New World Order that is under global government. We are under global government. I don't care what it looks like. Your government is not directed from Washington, D.C. It's directed from the UN. Freemasons. So, on 1/14/19, I had a dream about economic collapse. Okay? This is what I saw. There was something that was going out. It was caught and divided and multiplied many times to capture everything. It was like a ball rolling, and it had like this sharp thing that went out of it, like not a spear, but just like this sharp. It was like a rolling ball, and it had a sharp spike, something like a spike that was sticking out of it. And it kind of looked like that. So, and it was sent out. It was caught and divided and multiplied many times to capture everything. All right. And this is what it was to take a very small investment and to invest it and to send it out. It's dividing and growing, and it's going out and being divided until it is an unbelievable sum. It goes out and gathers all the money, which is debt, in the world. Then they dry up all the credit. They turn credit, which is money that you owe them, they turn credit into money. Then, by interest and time and branching, that turns into the unbelievable sum. It turns into a sum that is owed and is so large by interest and dividing it and sending it out until it equals more than can ever be paid back. And they start from a tiny sum, a tiny, tiny investment. And then they just send it out and divide it and send it so many places. This is the picture that I drew. Looks like this. Like at one place, they gained the confidence of some people. Told them, we have this stuff, it's valuable, it's money. And then they send out their loans. And by the time all these loans go out, see, it goes here and there. And each time it's multiplying. And each time all the interest is coming back and owed to this one source of it, where it went out from. And then by the time it's sent out into all these places, when it's done, the sum of all that's owed at the bottom is incomprehensibly large, only because it's being divided. If you take $1, make it $2, and then make that $4, and then make that $8, and you just keep going and going and going and going and going. And then it all flows back up. And then this one tiny portion at the top has these people on the bottom in a stranglehold because of debt. I hope that makes some kind of sense. So this is how they create money. They're saying, I'm the bank. Have confidence in me, and I will create a piece of paper that will represent money, the way you're going to exchange your goods that you bring to the marketplace. And then I say, well, you can grow your economy faster if you let me make this thing called credit. And what credit is I owe you. So it's the future. It's you selling away your future. It's you selling away your children. It's you selling away tomorrow plus interest. Now, can you create another day? Do you even have another day to give away? No, we're not even promised another day. So this will be done on the backs of your children. This will be done with you creating a wagon of debt that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you just keep piling it up and piling it up and piling it up. And each time it's moving up the chain. Because the one that loans the money to the next level, they owe interest back up. And they haven't created anything except for paper. And then people have the confidence in the paper. And they just keep loaning it out. And it goes out and out and out. And each time something goes back up to the top. And all these people have down here They don't have anything. All they have is debt. All they have is the fact that they promised themselves for tomorrow in exchange for the confidence that they placed in this piece of paper. And through this magic, through this sorcery, these people at the top divide and multiply and send this thing out by branches until it becomes an unimaginable sum that the whole world owes them interest on. And then when they decide to dry up the credit and say, okay, we're not loaning any more money, we're not creating any more numbers in your bank account, everything comes to a screeching halt. No one has any money because there isn't any, because it's not even real. All everybody has is debts. And they owe it to the next man, to the next man, to the next man, to the next man. And what you don't know is all one man up here. Just a very few, small, tiny group. And no one can move, and everyone's stuck because they don't do anything, and they won't do anything, and they can't do anything except it be for money. And they can't do anything without money because they placed their confidence in it. And it wasn't real, and they weren't in control of it. But someone is. Someone very, very sinister. All right. So, this is why they sent their ships across the whole world to go and recruit every nation into this imperialism. And they go there and they show them all the goods from different places around the world. And they call this wealth. And they say, hey, look, there's this money. Here's this paper. It buys this stuff. Work for this paper. And then you can have all these goods. So they control the money. Oh, we'll loan it to you. It's called credit. Borrow it. And you can control your nation. Show people what this money can buy. Then they'll work for it. And since I'll loan it to you, you'll have it. And then they indebt and enslave every nation. And then every person. I think it's something like what every American child owes the day they're born. Because of the debt of this nation. Because you promised the labor of your future to the people who've loaned you this money, to the bankers, in taxes. Okay. Okay. Now, this is old. This is from 2000. This is from 2015, when the debt was $18 trillion. I think it's like 20 something now. So, oh man, all these ads popping up on here. All right, this isn't really. So every baby I'll pick up, this is from 2012. It's way more than that now. It says, to every proud new parent, your bundle of joy already owes more than $13,000. Babies born today arrive in the red when it comes to state debt, a new report says. According to a study released Tuesday by the State Budget Solutions, a nonpartisan group pushing for state budget reform, every American owes $13,425 in state debt on average. For private sector workers who are shouldering much of the tax burden, the amount of debt adds up to well over $37,000 per worker. So when you get your paycheck and it says, you made $1,000 that week, but you only have like $650 in your paycheck, it's going here, it's going there. Now that was 2012. It's more now. It's way more now. Yeah. So almost a year ago, it was $21 trillion. Let me get back to the point so I can not make this. So now it's 22. That was less than a year ago. Now it's $22.7 trillion. Okay, this was from September. And it says, this is something from the New York Times. As debt rises, the government will soon spend more on interest than on the military. It says within a decade, more than $900 billion in interest payments will be due annually, easily outpacing spending on a myriad of other programs. Already the fastest growing major government expense, the cost of interest, is on track to hit $390 billion next year, nearly 50% more than in 2017. So as you see how each dollar that piles up onto the government debt, including interest, we're not paying the interest. It's piling up, just like your credit card. When you make that minimum payment, you're not even paying the interest. So your debt is still growing. And then each dollar it grows by increases the potential for it to grow. So the system that we have now, it will collapse due to debt. It is based on debt. And because that debt is based on interest, it will grow faster than you pay it back. It will. And they just sent it out. They sent out all this thin air money based on confidence people placed in pieces of paper. They sent it out and they just waited. Central banks sent this stuff out ever since the time when they first created it to indebt and enslave every nation, every people, and every individual, including the ones that are still wet from the womb, are indebted. Everybody. And since this money is nothing in the first place. As soon as they cut off the credit, as soon as the banks stop lending, everything's gone. All the money's gone. All the ability for anybody to do anything is gone. When you can no longer borrow money, you can no longer do business when your system is based on credit and debt, which ours is. The nature of our monetary system. All right. Insane. All right, now, the last thing I want to tie together is just to illustrate this. This is in the Bible. We're going to read Genesis chapter 41. This is where they learned this, because these central bankers are from the synagogue of Satan. They are those who are in Israel, and they say they're Jews, but they are not, but they do lie. But they are the synagogue of Satan. And the Lord told me the other day, one day, he said that the people, I can't find it, but the people that are in Israel today are Decepticons. I did not know what a Decepticon was. I kind of looked it up, and I asked a younger relative of mine who's seen all those. I found out looking up on the internet that it's from the movie Transformers. This type of thing, robot thing called a Decepticon. I don't think he really answered me. Our conversation just went off. But from what I kind of looked up, they're just horrible deceivers. They're enemies, deceivers, horrible. So they're not what they appear to be. Okay, Pharaoh's dream. So I think we're looking for Genesis chapter 41, maybe. Oh, Lordy. Genesis chapter 41. Okay, Genesis chapter 41. Okay, so these Decepticons, these people in Israel, this is how this knowledge of deception and trickery and wickedness and how to gather up everything, how to send this stuff out and how to gather up everything, these principles, every place they were scattered, they, because human beings are capable of the knowledge of good and evil. So these people, they even used the oracles of God. They even used the principles that God taught them. And instead of using these things for the benefit of mankind, they saw the ideal government, which was God's system, the ideal way for human beings to govern themselves. And they take those principles and twist them to their advantage. Like God told them, everybody has property. No family can permanently lose their property. Things are transferred by inheritance. And so they've designed a system that works in the upside down fashion of God's way, which is no property, no inheritance. Now they're hypocrites now, so that's for you, but they still do these things. It all applies to you, but not to them. That's the way communism works. It's for the public to do, but for the people who rule it, they're hypocrites, and they lay heavy burdens on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not lift them with one of their little fingers. So all these things are an image, an outside front for you to make it sound fair. But all along, they're Decepticons, and they're behind the surface. They're behind the scenes. They're hidden. They're occult. And they are, occult means hidden. And they're behind the scenes, taking advantage of the whole system. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. They present everything as fair and equitable, but it's exactly the opposite, because God's design is fair and equitable. Land ownership that goes through families and is inherited and is free from taxes. But they do exactly the opposite. The tenets of communism. Number one, destroy private property. There's 10 of them. Destroy inheritance. Introduce a graduated income tax. There's not to be any taxes. And they have all manner of taxes. Central banks. There wasn't to be any of that. God didn't intend any of that. So they took what God taught them and they did exactly the opposite. They pile up debt. They send it out and they pile it up. And they do interest, usury. Which God said don't do. And the land is supposed to have a Sabbath, which means at a certain time, ever so often, in 7-year cycles, all debt was to be forgiven. But they send it out and they let it pile and pile and build and build and build until they have everything. And they never, that's why they got carried away into Babylon, because they refused the Sabbath. They refused to do the year of release. They refused to do the year of Jubilee the 49th year. After 49 years, everything was supposed to go back. Any lands that had been mortgaged away. It just goes back to the family without any price. Even anyone who had sold themselves into slavery, they go free. Any money they owed, it is forgiven. It's gone to keep things from piling up to the top. God is equity. But they set up a system through their knowledge of God, through Him showing them the ideal system. They were able to craft another system. It wasn't that they were so clever. It's just that they're wicked. They were willing to take what God showed them and twist it. And don't think you're any better, Christians, Christian leaders, who took the principles of God and turned it into a prosperity gospel, a name it and claim it, a once saved, always saved. Oh, don't worry about trouble. It's pre-trib rapture. Yeah, I know the Bible says there's a time of trouble, but you won't see trouble. You sit a queen. Not so. So this is where they learned that from. This is where they learned this. Genesis 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, which is cattle, and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kind upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored kine and fat kine. The well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the second dream. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told his dream. But there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servant, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. Okay, in ward means in jail, and the captain of the guard would like the jail keeper, the keeper of his army. And we dreamed a dream in one night, he and I. And we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant of the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dream. Each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was, me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean flesh, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and ill-favored kine did eat up the 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered and thin, blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one, and God hath shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. There shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of all those good years that come, and lay up corn under Pharaoh's hand, and let them keep the food in the cities. Tax the people during the 7 plenteous years. And that food shall be for store in the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this man, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God hath shown thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Okay. So, verse 47 says, And in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering. For it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons. Okay, I'm going to skip down. Okay. Verse 53. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried unto Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened the storehouses, and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was sore in all lands. Keep listening. All right. I'm going to go to chapter 43. And the famine was sore in the land. And it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought. Oh, no. That's not what I'm going for. Sorry. Okay. Now I'm in Genesis 47, verse 13. So time goes on. We're into the 7 years of famine. Now, because of God, through Joseph, Pharaoh knows what to do during this famine. Otherwise, they would have just thought, oh, the good times are just going to roll on. Ooh, it's a new world. And we're just going to have and have and have and have. And each year is going to be more bountiful than the last. They would have been wasteful. But because he knew before time what was going to happen, they saved. So, verse 13. So now they're into the time where nothing grows. Nothing is growing. So, the economy has come to a screeching halt. Nothing's happening. And the only way they're surviving is because there was so much in those 7 years of plenty that they're able to eat off of it. So, but it's all in the hands of Pharaoh under Joseph. So now there's the people. They cried out to Joseph. Pharaoh says, go. They cried out to Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh says, go to Joseph. And in verse 13 of chapter 47, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land, and in the land of Canaan, for the corn which they bought. And Joseph bought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle, if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. When that year ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, we will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught, which means anything, left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our lands? Buy us and our lands for bread, and we and our lands will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, and for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so that the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even unto the other end thereof. Only the land of the priest bought he not, for the priest had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have bought you this day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase, when I'm giving you seed, and whenever the harvest comes, that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for food for your little ones. And they said, thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priest only, which became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. Okay. So do you see what happened there? Because of the revelation of God, there was a foreknowledge, and they were able to take advantage of that foreknowledge to shape the happenings and to remove not just all the money, but then all the cattle, and then all the lands. and then to enslave the people. And then finally, they owed Pharaoh their future too. It says, it shall come to pass. That's the future. In the increase. I've given you seed today, and tomorrow you owe me the fifth part, which is 20%. So now they went from free people, landowners, having cattle, having herds, which is real wealth, to being sharecroppers. All because there was a cycle of expansion, and then it all dried up. So this is what the Decepticons learned about the cycles that we constantly go through in our economy. And each time it's expanded with this, and instead of they don't do it by, well, I'm not going to say that. They, in this case, it was famine. It was on the cause of the weather. But here they create it by wild lending. They just print money like crazy. They make it rain. It's raining dollars. The government just borrows a bunch of money and just spends it out into the economy. And it's just raining money. And during that time, when the economy is said to be booming, things are being made, things are being built, things are being bought, money is flowing freely. And they know how long they're going to do this because they control it. So, you know how they say the economy, you have boom and bust. You have the bear market, you have the bull market. It's not accidental because they learned this principle. They got to see what happens. That was 14 years. When you know it beforehand, you're able to properly interpret the events that are happening before you. Okay, so how this works today. They control the money. They print it. They control credit. They make credit loose. They make credit tight. They raise they raise the, I forget what they call the interest rate of the Federal Reserve, the amount of money that the Federal Reserve, the interest rate that they charge to banks. So they call that, what do they call it? I forget what they call it. But the interest rate that you pay when you borrow money from anything is going to be tied to the interest rate that the Federal Reserve sets. That's where they're talking about. They're raising interest rates, 0.25%. And they did that, 3 times or 4 times last year? And what happened when they did that? Now all of a sudden we see the economy shrinking. The first place to be hit in our economy and across the globe is housing prices. That's going to be like when a plant starts to die, when it's being affected by a drought, the first thing you're going to see is the little tips of the leaves. First it's going to start wilting the little tips of the leaves, and then that dryness will spread up, and the last thing that's going to die is the roots. So they say, housing is very, very sensitive to economic downturns. So it's one of the very first indicators that something bad is about to happen in your economy when housing prices start going down. Because as the prices of houses are directly and immediately affected by interest rates. Housing prices are immediately and directly affected by interest rates because payments, monthly payments, are so dependent upon the interest rate. At one interest rate, you can afford that house. But if interest rates go up 1%, all of a sudden that house, based on the monthly payment, will be out of your reach. You take the interest rate down a couple percent, and you can afford a house 3 times as much. That's how much interest rates control monthly payments because of the way they calculate that 30-year loan. It's all interest at the beginning. So the bigger the loan, the more the interest. And the higher the interest rate, the more the interest. So when interest rates shrink, the interest comes down and you're able to afford more house. I have a video that I'll link called The Housing Bubble. And that's what happens when the Federal Reserve makes money. That's how they make it rain, with the interest rate. They create money through loaning by debt. That's how they create money. They allow you to borrow money. They allow you to borrow on credit. And that literally creates the money. It doesn't exist before you borrow it. Now it exists as a loan. And I'm able to sell that loan. Look, so-and-so owes me so much money. I'll sell you their loan, and then they'll owe it to you. So then that's even more money. Each time it's created. Loans create the money that we place so much confidence in. It's just debt. And the person who created that initial loan is the one who all that money flows to. So it's just like Pharaoh. When under the hand of Joseph, Pharaoh owned all the corn that existed in that area. And as the famine dragged on, as it was all dried up, but God was in control of that, he dried up everything for 7 years. You had this time of plenty where the Fed is making it rain. The Federal Reserve Bank is making it rain by putting the interest rates really low. So as we know, they were practically zero ever since the economic crash of 2008. I think the interest rate was like, don't quote me, but I think it was like 0.5% or something, like basically zero. So money was cheap. Credit, not going to say money, I'm going to say credit. Credit becomes what we know as money. So it was cheap. So it was plenteous. It was flowing. There were jobs. People were buying houses because there's just loans. And then you can use loans to buy things. People will trade you things in exchange for this credit that you get. And then that becomes the money. You take out the loan, they create the credit, and then you transfer that credit to the next person, and then people are willing to work for this. And everything, that's what they say, let's get America working again. The federal government comes in and starts spending money, which they get from the Fed. Hope that makes sense. So then the Fed creates these cycles, and they determine how long it's going to go on. In this case, it was for 8 years. No, 10 years. And then in 2018, they said, oh, look, the economy is doing so well. The economy can never be doing well based on debt. It can never be doing well based on credit, which is debt. Because remember, debt, you're just dragging it behind. And it's behind your back so you don't see it. But it's growing, and it's a monster. And even your kids owe it. So now, the economy's doing so great. we're going to now, this is what they say, but they already know that they know what they're going to do, because they saw in Egypt what happens when you have plenty and then you dry it up. But you got to do it fast. It's got to just like boom. It's got to go from boom to bust. It can't like slowly go away. It's got to crash. If it doesn't crash, then people will prepare. But if it happens suddenly, then the people don't know what hit them. They can't pull their money out. They can't prepare themselves. The whole time Pharaoh's gathering up this money, these people don't know that there's only 7 years. These people don't know. They just think like people now. Oh, housing's just going to go up and up and up. Oh, there's no end to the economic prosperity. We can run an economy based on debt. We can just keep printing money. We can run an economy with a deficit. Deficit spending is okay. We have trickle-down economics. Things work. This works, guys. It doesn't work. Debt doesn't work. So the Fed, they're making it rain. And then in 2018, they stop. And it goes up. 0.25%, another quarter, another quarter, another quarter. So they did that 4 times, so that they raised the interest rate by 2%. And of course, those things like housing, which are housing prices are extremely sensitive to interest rates. I haven't heard of anything that's more sensitive. But housing prices react immediately to a change in interest rate, because monthly payments change. Even though the price of the house doesn't change, the monthly interest rate changes based on your interest rate. So as soon as interest rates go up, then houses, though the price hasn't changed immediately, what the people pay per month will change. And since wages are still right here, the people can't afford anymore just because the price is going to start going up. I mean, the price is going to have to start coming down to make up for the interest costing more. So the person says, look, I only got $1,000 a month to spend on my house. So since the interest went up, now the price of the house has to come down. So then that way, housing prices crash. I'll put the housing bubble video if you want to understand that, how that works. All right, so they dry up the economy. And then they hold the interest rates high for a set period of time. That corresponds to how long. They raise the interest rates. They hold them high to correspond to the amount of time that they were low. 7 years of plenty, and then 7 years of famine. And in that 7 years of famine, interest rates go high, debt becomes expensive, credit becomes expensive, credit is not available, money dries up, because money is nothing but borrowed. It's nothing but borrowed credit. So when the interest rates go up, you can't borrow. And that's the only thing that raises and lowers our economy. And that's what they call a recession. And each time that happens, these money lenders, these central bankers, each time that happens, just like Pharaoh, just like under Joseph, they're gathering up the real wealth of the people. Each time the money's all dried up, then the people lose real wealth. They lost their cattle, then they lost their homes, then they lost themselves, then they lost their futures. And that's what they're doing now. They lost their futures in that now they owe Pharaoh taxes. Now they're just sharecroppers. And as long as there's property tax, that's all you are too. You never own that piece of land. You pay taxes twice a year. Skip them. And within a few months, they'll sell your property out from under you for pennies, for a pittance. And it's no longer yours. And that's the way this thing works. They expand and contract the economy. They expand and contract the economy. And each time they do it, the people are left with less and less and less. And this has been done for so many cycles until now the entire world is enslaved. And it's all stacked up. And the next time they collapse it, which they're on their way to doing by raising the interest rates. And they only have to do it in America because the world economies are based on the dollar. The dollar. With the one with the pyramid on it. Out of many one. With the eye on top of it. Yeah, him, Satan. The next time they do it, that's it. That's the end game. This is the last time. We have nothing. We are enslaved to the point that when they do it now, there's nothing left to squeeze out. You got nothing. You ain't got nothing. Everyone's in debt, and everybody's going to be left holding the bag. They got a tax on top of a tax, and a tax again. You're born enslaved. You saw each baby who's born owes a portion of the U.S. debt. God told me a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, that money disappears with the rich. That's what that was, that each cycle, the money is gone, and there's less, and it's gone. There's less wealth and more debt. Less wealth, more debt. How does that seem? It seems not to be true because you seem to have a car. You seem to have a house. But you don't, that's not your car. Look at your title. The bank's name is on there. Sun Bank is on there. Wells Fargo is on that title. Look at the deed to your house. It says Chase Manhattan. It says Huntington Bank. It says Lending Tree. I don't know. So each time they pumped it up and put it back, wealth was gone. Money was gone. And all that was left in its place was a note. Debt. And the next time they do it, everything's going to collapse and everything will be in their hands. They will have sent this thing out. And it's out gathering. It's dividing. It's multiplying. It's debt. It's interest. And it's out and it's gathering everything. And the cycle is complete. And the next time they rake it all in, we're going to be like the Egyptians. Pharaoh owns you. He's got you. And everyone will scream to Pharaoh. Y'all remember that picture of Obama as Pharaoh? They're going to scream. Help us, we're starving. So they're going to offer up a new monetary system, saying that old one was bad, that was unfair. Take this, digital money, digital coin. I believe it'll be Bitcoin because God spoke to me, Bitcoin. And so when you take that digital money, it'll be controlled by a chip. And that chip will be the mark of the beast. Don't take it. Starve. Starve if you must. Don't take it. What is a man's life? What will a man give in exchange for his soul? Be faithful unto death. All right, that's it. God bless.